Welcome back into the Daily Dose. I'm Jeff Hansen. As always, the show's brought to you by Give'emHellBrigham.com and by CougarSportsInsider.com, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Thank you to those of you who already subscribe to the channel. If you don't, please do. What are you waiting for? Please subscribe to the channel. We're here every day with BYU content. It's great. You don't want to miss it. Like, comment, share, fuel the algorithm. That's what helps us grow on YouTube. I appreciate your support. You guys are the best. BYU. 2-0, coming off a 41-16 win over Southern Utah, where in the second half was pretty basic, pretty base defense, pretty vanilla. You could tell BYU was in control. The reserves got in, I don't know, with about 6-7 minutes left in the game. So the second half is almost throwaway tape, but overall, BYU played better. A lot more reasons to be confident coming out of week 2 than there were coming out of week 1. That's the good news. And that is good news. We've got to look for good news. Kalani Sitake actually talked about this in his postgame show where he said he's trying to focus on the positive because it's super easy to focus on the negative. Everybody's going to be focused on the negative, but there were some very real building blocks that BYU can focus on, can grow from coming out of week 2. So that's great. But there were some very negative things. The rushing game was abysmal. No matter who was playing, that was a dreadful performance from the offense in the rushing attack. That has to improve. There were some real question marks on the defensive side of the ball. The offensive line still has some question marks. So there's a lot of question marks still that BYU has to focus on. A lot of good things. Keaton Slovis looked like the guy we'd heard about throughout fall camp. That's huge. He was an accurate passer. He used the pocket really well, spread the ball around. That was huge. Isaac Rex looked like the weapon we hoped he'd be at the tight end spot. Darius Lassiter, he really improved his downfield blocking as a wide receiver, and that's what enabled him to stay on the field. When you block as a wide receiver, Aaron Roderick will trust you and keep you on the field, and he'll draw up plays for you, and he did that for Darius Lassiter a whole lot. We saw Braden Keim come off the bench and spell Kingsley Suamataia after Kingsley went down with what looked like an ankle injury. Kingsley was in and out throughout the rest of the game, but when he wasn't in, Braden Keim came in and played well. And we're going to talk more about Braden Keim in a minute because I think he's the answer to a very difficult decision that the coaches have to make going forward, but very strong showing from Braden Keim. Marcus McKenzie is a revelation. Harrison Taggart played really well. Looks like he's earned more playing time. I don't know who he's going to take it from because all three of A.J. Vongphachanh, Max Tooley, and Ben Bywater are playing very, very well. I mean, so overall, there's lots of things to build from. BYU took that week 1 to week 2 jump. I think there still is another week 2 to week 3 jump. There's reasons, I think, to be optimistic. But there are 3 difficult decisions that BYU has to make, and I think they have to make them this week. And they come on both sides of the ball. Number 1 is the right tackle position. Caleb Etienne has not been playable. He's not been good. There's no way to sugarcoat it. He hasn't even been average. He has been bad. The overall play of the offensive line is worse when Caleb Etienne is in the game. It's that simple. You look at the overall play of the offensive line last week and you see 16 total pressures and you go, whoa, that's not good enough. That's bad offensive line play. Well, 7 of them were attributed to Caleb Etienne, and there were probably 2 more that you could tack on to Etienne's total, depending on how or who you were grading. Without knowing the playbooks and the exact play calls, it's tough to say those in between, those gray areas, who to assign those to. They didn't get attributed to Caleb Etienne via Pro Football Focus, but they could have. So anywhere 7 to 9 pressures of the 16 on one guy, on your right tackle, who's supposed to be a bookend. He had a holding penalty. He's had penalties in every week. He's offering next to nothing as a run blocker. He's too slow for this scheme. It feels really harsh to be this harsh, but when you watch the film, it stands out. Caleb Etienne is not helping this team. Braden Keim came in, played for an injured Kingsley Suamataia, and played well. His athleticism was huge. Caleb Etienne doesn't offer that kind of athleticism. He's big, he's strong, and he was more athletic a year ago at Oklahoma State. He just is noticeably slower this year. I don't know if it's an effort thing. I don't know if it's an out of shape thing. I have no idea. All I know is that the results on the field are not good. I think BYU has to make a very difficult decision this week. You brought in Caleb Etienne from Oklahoma State to be a starting right tackle. He has not played like a starting right tackle, and I think BYU has to move on from Caleb Etienne. That doesn't mean they can't move back to him eventually if he shows well in practice, But Braden Kimes showed me enough last week, and Caleb Etienne continues to not show me anything. I think you got to make that switch. Hopefully Kingsley's back and can play on the left side at full strength. Braden Kimes slides in over at the right tackle spot. The overall performance of the offensive line would get better if Etienne is not in the mix. That's just kind of the reality of the situation. Tough decision. Nobody wants to make that decision in week 2. But week 1 was bad. You hope week 2 is a get-right game for Caleb Etienne, and week 2 was worse. BYU can't afford to wait much longer. I think they've got to make that switch, and they've got to make that switch today. The running back position, I think there's a similar decision that has to be made. Aiden Robbins was brought in to be the bell cow running back. There's no question about it. He hasn't got as many carries as maybe he should. That's tough. It's tough to bench a guy because he's only getting 3-4 carries a game. He hasn't received enough attention in the running game to really make a decision of whether or not he's an effective runner. But as a pass protector, he has been an absolute liability for BYU. You go back to Keaton Slovis's interception and you watch that play. And there's one of two things that happened with Aiden Robbins. Either one, he ran the wrong route. This is the best case scenario. He didn't know the play and he took the play action. And instead of chip blocking the unblocked defender, he went out to the flat where Keelan Marion was already standing and then tried to recover. That's the best case scenario, is that he didn't know the play and executed poorly. Worst case scenario is that he was so nervous and so afraid of that pass protection, of him needing to pass block, that he just let guys go free, unchecked, right into the chest of Keaton Slovis. All that Aiden Robbins needed to do was lay down. If he makes those defenders take even a half second longer, that play goes for 6. Chase Roberts was wide open. Keaton Slovis only needed a little bit more time to get rid of that ball, but Aiden Robbins completely failed in pass protection. And I think if you go throughout the game, there's more examples of that. Even when he did get carries, and he didn't get very many, you can see that Aiden Robbins isn't seeing the gaps like other running backs are. I like Aiden Robbins. I like his potential, and I think he is a very good player. I just don't see it this week. I think he's got to hit the playbook a little bit harder, and he's got to figure out some things before he can get onto the field. You look at his production, and it's easy to say the offensive line isn't blocking for him, and that's true. There's clear problems on the offensive line. But there were a couple of carries for Aiden Robbins that could have gone for big yardage, chunk plays, but he just doesn't see the gap. He doesn't see the cutback. While true freshman LJ Martin is just a true freshman, he's seeing those things. I think the difficult decision has to be made. The running back by committee, it works when your committee is effective, but right now there is only 1/3 of that committee that has been effective, that has made memorable runs. You got to give LJ Martin the ball more against Arkansas. You now have 2 weeks worth of tape of the other running backs not being nearly as effective as LJ Martin. You got to make the change. Finally, my last difficult decision, I think BYU has to really consider what they're going to do with Malik Moore. I don't think Malik Moore needs to be benched, not by any stretch of the imagination, but I think the heat needs to be there. He got beat on a touchdown pass, and it was basic free safety 101. Do not let your receiver get behind you. Jacob Robinson was in coverage, played the underneath route really well, knowing that he had safety help over the top, and somehow Malik Moore just let the guy run right past him. Now, maybe Malik was trying to, it was closer to the end zone, and maybe Malik was thinking that the back of the end zone was kind of an extra defender, but the math didn't work. The angle didn't work. The quarterback put in a very nice throw, and it was a very nice throw, but the quarterback put in a very nice throw right into the breadbasket for 6. If you have double coverage and your safety just watches the wide receiver run past him, what's the point of having double coverage? You might as well bring on a linebacker and try to get to the quarterback if your safety is going to get beat over the top anyways. There were a handful of plays like that from Malik that weren't great, that he just wasn't quite in the right spot. You expect a little bit more from a guy who has that kind of experience, and I think we saw Jay Hill make an adjustment. Malik Moore was taken off the field multiple times. I wonder if that's something that is going to stick. Malik Moore is going to have to show the coaches something in practice, I think, in order to maintain his solidified starting spot. You want him there. His experience is super valuable, especially with Micah Harper and Talon Alfrey still out at the other safety position. You want Malik Moore there. But if Malik Moore isn't going to put that effort in and he's going to get beat over the top, you might as well roll with some younger guys that are at least going to give you that effort. Because KJ Jefferson, he will make that throw that Miller made, Justin Miller made at Southern Utah. KJ Jefferson will make that throw all game long against Arkansas. And those Razorback receivers are going to be way faster than anything we saw from Southern Utah. Malik Moore has to get in the right position. So those are the three difficult decisions that I think I'm starting the week off. If I'm in the coach's office, those are the three things I've got to address. Hey, maybe we need to make a switch at right tackle. Hey, let's give LJ Martin the lion's share of the reps this week as RB1. And hey, we got to start to figure out what we're doing at the free safety position, because that killed us. That gave up a touchdown that against Southern Utah maybe doesn't matter, but against Arkansas, an effort play like that could be the difference between a win and a loss. Lots of things to build on, lots of positive things. We'll still talk about those throughout the week. But here on this Monday morning, if I'm armchair quarterbacking on Monday morning, those are the three decisions that I think have to be made in today's practice so that you can prepare for what's coming up on Saturday when BYU travels to Fayetteville to take on Arkansas. Appreciate you guys tuning into the Daily Dose once again. And until next time, give them hell.